One day, your face will be everywhere. Your voice appears in every movie poster, trailer, and your name is clearly visible. You're more than just a movie in Hollywood. You are the movie star. Then all of a sudden nothing, no farewell, no controversy, no warning, you simply disappear from the limelight. That is precisely what transpired with Val. Kilmer didn't gradually disappear. Instead, he vanished like a magician's last trick, and individuals have been wondering what actually went well now. Mel Gibson is at last voicing his opinions, and the reality is more sinister and more difficult than anyone anticipated. I have a pet for us, and it has been a while. Oh, you look fantastic in the Val Kilmer costume. As the Instagram-caped crusader won Val, the final time before his death, Kilmer wasn't your typical performer. The youngest individual ever admitted to Juilliard received intensive theater training, and he was brimming with unadulterated talent. Attractive, passionate, and possessed at Hollywood, the casting directors were thrilled that he had a little conceited. But when you're the star in popular films such as Top Secret, Top Gun, you sort of earn the tombstone and the doors. The right to have faith in his Jim Morrison's performance was so fans believed him to be Morrison. As well as when he donned the Batman costume in Batman Forever. Val, released in 1995, wasn't only he was at the top of the list of actors. A-list. But immediately following Batman Forever, strange things occurred when it was its time to start shooting the next Batman flick. Robin, Val, and Batman were not present. Discovered no significant announcement or dramatic leaving. George merely took his position. Clooney and no one gave an explanation for why. It was only stillness, followed by the director years later. At last, Joel Schumacher revealed the interview drama, and let's just say without hesitation, he called Val a schizophrenic, grumbled about being pampered. Performers who were overpaid and even claimed to have prayed to never again collaborate with Val. At one, Schumacher stated that Kilmer didn't talk to him for 2 weeks before calling it quits. Happiness. But this is where things start to go south. When does being challenging become someone who is totally removed from Hollywood? Let's face it, many actors have shouted out crew personnel and threw tantrums, even tossed items around the stage, and they still win Oscars and get big budget parts. Mel Gibson claims that the true cause is that Val declined to participate by he didn't follow the unwritten rules of Hollywood. Give the appropriate folks a kiss. Questioned authority and asked the system, and in a society where strong people anticipate silence and loyalty from Val. Stood out, and in a negative way. Bad actors are not always punished in Hollywood. Conduct, but it does penalize those who don't follow Val Kilmer's script. Not only was he revising the script, but he was throwing it away entirely, and then the murmurs arrived. The ones that don't create news but have a devoted following. Shadow that has the potential to ruin a career without ever needing to express your name aloud. That's what transpired with Val Kilmer. Didn't simply quit receiving large positions, he was discreetly blacklisted. Subtle yet thorough, and he was aware of it. In one really honest and unvarnished interview, Val didn't mince words when asked whether he was challenging for others to collaborate with. He chuckled and remarked, "But do you believe that individuals had a hard time to collaborate with you? Since yes, what's the one beyond the difficult and impossible, unfeasible? Yes, I am somewhat blocked. I haven't been given a studio job for 15 years, therefore you're feeling you are prohibited from using the no, not in a manner you are, I believe." But Val Kilmer was no longer upset with Hollywood. Was thoughtful, sincere, and vulnerable. Acknowledged that he used to speak up as well. Too many complaints and incomplete comprehend the company he worked for. He believed that it was all about the art. Being enthusiastic about the work was sufficient. "I had thoughts, you know," he remarked. "I'd put my insecurities onto the company." He also made a joke about having in his wicked twin most likely led him into trouble multiple times without blaming. He hated himself for not playing in front of others. The gain for not following instructions or enough gratitude outspoken on a number of extremely particular topics regarding the artwork, however, I behaved as though it were a business. Wasn't due to your acting career. I was an incompetent actress, yet I used to grumble a lot when I was younger. I didn't value the company that allowed me to live the kind of life I instantly enjoyed, knowing that in my debut film, I played the lead role. Led in my very first play. Expertly, but let's zoom out, as Val's tale is about more than one. An actor's decline in popularity is a larger, stranger pattern. In the late, when the situation became questionable, Kilmer faded from the public eye in the vicinity of 1998 to 1999, but Mel Gibson wasn't by himself. Brendan Fraser, Wesley, and everyone else began to disappear. Mel, the former king of the box office, unexpectedly failed to receive a studio to call back unless he, Wesley, who paid for the movie personally, was imprisoned for taxes that were attributed to Brendan Fraser. His accountant vanished after raising concerns about being attacked by chance on the internet. Doesn't believe so, and to be honest, it's difficult. Not even Mel noticed the pattern. Gibson began making connections, and in an interview in 1998, he acknowledged that he started to feel suspicious of something was off. I couldn't do a lot of things. He stated that no one provided an explanation. He explained how Hollywood began to feel similar, like one of those eerie saloons in vintage and westerns. The stranger was the second enters. Everyone becomes quiet. He said, "Stare at you like they're caution. Don't enter the house on." He reminded himself that he was being insane, that he was seeing things in his head, but years later, he discovered that he wasn't. He was correct to be paranoid. And then comes the 1999 is a year that nearly feels eyes wide. Is released by Stanley Kubrick. Keep a mask-filled movie a secret. Hidden Truths and Societies is a film that, to be honest, it seemed like a straightforward symbol for the shadowy side of Hollywood, and Kubrick, shortly prior to completing the cut, not only passes away, but does so unexpectedly, and according to reports, 25 minutes of the movie are cut inexplicably after his passing. What no one was present during those lost minutes knows, but imagine what else took place. In Val Kilmer leaves the A-list in 1999. It's difficult to avoid making connections with Radar. And when we talk about masks, consider neither was Kilmer's Batman ostentatious, or he felt certain that he was frigid and tormented a man. Mask wearing not only for the sake of justice but to conceal oneself from an unsettling, and perhaps Kilmer wasn't merely acting. Was attempting to inform us and obtain. He wasn't merely an actor, though. For years, he documented his own truth. Recorded all of the home videos. Behind-the-scenes footage, including the silent sections, as though he knew that one day he may require proof of receipts for his 2021 documentary Val. The weight is palpable. I have countless hours of film reels and videotapes I've shot throughout my professional and personal life, he stated. And that one line that stuck came next. Like a ghost in the room with the audience, to which he said, "Shut the video camera off," gently answered, "I'll continue till we're practicing." That wasn't merely a specifically, it was opposition to observing that the movie is like seeing someone attempting to avoid being removed rather than from recollection, but from history, and thus where the temperature drops around the time Kilmer started to lose attention, a darker cloud began to move in. Hollywood-style clouds that muttered about the black books of flights and an island that nobody wants to name. However, everyone understands that the timing was the gradual extinction of uncanny Kilmer, nearly precisely aligned with the did he refuse the rise of Epstein's shadow. Was it an invitation? Did he say something incorrectly? He was just not at the right time. Following the other player's game action, nobody is certain, but the pattern are too many names missing from the radar in the same time period, and too many. One thing connected them all. Didn't remain quiet for you now. To gain a better understanding of this, let's fast forward to 2015, When the scripts and Sound of Freedom was initially composed, a movie based on the actual work of Tim, a former agent of the Homeland Security. Ballard concentrated on saving kids. From filming Wrapped by Taking Rings 2018, you'd think, considering the topic matter, a major studio would be involved. Released incorrectly, the movie was thrown out. Like a hot potato that no one was interested in, it was left untouchable for 5 years. Because this is where things begin to get suspicious at first. It was meant to 20th Century Fox will release it, but then Disney jumped in and bought Fox in 2019. And the rights to the sound of What Did They Do with Freedom? Kept it hidden, vaulted, and buried for a film about rescuing children. That's when people began observing the entire circumstance. Why would a business recognized for childhood awe and fairy tales bury? Then came a movie about child protection. Hollywood's black sheep, Mel Gibson, always raucous and contentious, yet additionally, someone who has been pointing out the shadowy side of the sector for since the late 1990s. Mel has been dropping cryptic, occasionally frantic, occasionally too candid remarks on he once talked about the dark side of show business. Hollywood is a deranged little community where the secret is known by everybody, but nobody discusses one of the most unsettling topics he ever disclosed was concerning a famous producer, although he would not specify who, said that women in movies either it's preferable to be dead or nude. But Mel wasn't only responding to what he was revealing over the years, he expressed his views on how the children are exploited by the industry, which treats women poorly. This keeps predators at bay, so when the Sound of at last Freedom was granted, Mel's vocal assistance on her own wasn't merely PR, yet it seemed intimate, and then this contentious event was unexpected. $14 million was spent on this small independent film. The budget went over by about $100 million. Global grassroots assistance packed theaters, constant word of mouth. Although I suppose what is the silence of the mainstream media? Worse, overtly antagonistic media such as CNN, The Guardian, and Rolling Stone didn't simply disregard it. They dragged it and termed it conspiracy theory, lack of in-depth research, straightforward, sincere criticism, dismissal. The movie wasn't the reason. Rather, it was about what it stood for. Mel had been struggling to stay in the meantime. Lethal is the game he has been promoting. Weapon 5 claims that its writing is the greatest of the entire franchise, is prepared. Written, but nobody is interested in creating it. Even he acknowledges that he has no idea why. However, let's face it, it most likely has unrelated to the script and everything related to the risk associated with his name, the label of being too much baggage, contentious, which is where the source of frustration is. That let's be, there are actual individuals in Hollywood. Those have performed much worse and still have welcomed back as if nothing had occurred. Therefore, why not him? Interestingly, a couple, Robert Downey has been supported by Voices. Jr., the renowned comeback king, supported Mel when he was at his lowest more recently. Andrew Garfield defended him as well, particularly while advertising the Hacksaw Ridge that Mel Garfield, the director, even stated, "Everyone merits a second, third, or even fourth place." Opportunities. However, Mel's chance still appears to be in limbo. Perhaps politics is to blame. Perhaps it's a system or power that protects while punishing others. Mel and Kilmer, whatever, shared the trait of being noisy when being silent was safer, and perhaps that is the reason they were expelled from the limelight. Now here's where things become more sinister. Mel Gibson began to make hints. Deeper, something darker lurking behind Hollywood's waning star. Val Kilmer wasn't merely stating that Val lost his advantage or became ill, but Mel was implying that Kilmer was too aware of the true cost. It wasn't easy being famous in Tinseltown. It was your soul and Val, not your skill or labor. He had no intention of signing that spiritual. At the very least, he refused to portray the role of a sector that need quiet in exchange for success. In Mel's opinion, Val noticed behind the curtain and inquired about incorrect inquiries, stepped on the toes of individuals you shouldn't question, and then, suddenly, due to the lack of opportunities, we are speaking concerning a man who left Blockbuster. The media ghost role icon disappeared. Directors whose initiatives vanished hailed him brilliant, then abruptly stopped studios acting like they were picking up the phone. He didn't exist. The media is constantly ravenous. Reverse the script on him for a headline. Suddenly he lost his brilliance. Was challenging, shallow, and self-centered. The story was distorted and turned into something that the whole public can enjoy. He wasn't being hushed by consumption. Val was only stepping back, but Mel created an alternative image that sounded less like retirement and more like exile. He thought Val Kilmer had been forced out. Not due to aging, not due to cancer. However, since he didn't follow the unwritten laws and the same covert system for years, Mel has been calling out. Claimed to have abandoned Kilmer for refusing to follow through, and now individuals are. Was it just beginning to connect the dots? Truly ego-centered, or was it about Kilmer's refusal to stay was exposed? He becomes a threat if he remains silent, because by the time he got himself back to the Top Gun Maverick, enthusiasts witnessed it on the screen as a victorious return. Yet if you watch that moment again now that you know not everything we do feels like a return, it's like saying goodbye to a gentle sad farewell to the voice you heard during a passionate conversation with Tom Cruise's voice wasn't even his true voice. Repaired using synthetic knowledge from old recordings, and sheer Val's resolve allowed him to perform that scene. Needed to, but he was struggling physically. An unseen fight to survive behind the cameras on site every day. It was vicious and abandoned him every day. Every line was a mountain to be exhausted. Climb was more than just throat cancer. Now, that was all that his body was. In defiance, and his soul was retaining on, but only just, and after Maverick, Val became too silent. Ceased conducting interviews. Attending events became less common in public life. Completely, the majority of people believed he was just savoring tranquility, perhaps at last unwinding after being in the public eye for decades. But didn't he have a sense of relaxation? Fading gradually, painfully, and silently, his pals began to notice the initial calls. Reed received unanswered texts. Perhaps didn't even deliver some that hadn't been seen him in months, and even relatives were in the dark, but no one applied too much pressure. After all the mystery, he was Val Kilmer. The man who once turned into an artist isolation into a kind of art. Many thought Val as simply being Val at that point. But this wasn't a man preferring to be alone. Someone slipped away, then appeared. The globe awoke on April 1st to the news of many hope that his passing was only an April Fool's Day is a perverse hoax, yet Val Kilmer was no longer there. Pneumonia as the official cause. However, if you are aware, Hollywood, that pneumonia is their preferred euphemism, which is the natural source that appears to manifest itself far. Kim Porter, Heavy D. Andre, much too frequently. Harold is said to have disappeared entirely from